What is? Welcome into a live edition of the Casey Laboratory presented by Emprise Bank, member FDIC, our amazing partners in Possible here at Casey Sports Network. It's a Wednesday. That means it's a Matter Day. Matt Swanson here with Matt Hamilton and Matt Lane. Matthew Lane, how we doing today?
Listen, I mean, we're doing pretty good. We're inching ever closer to the draft. We got, Low T Swanson is back after missing him last week. I'm glad that he is back. And Hamilton, I'm glad you were here too. I need somebody to, help me out on the show. Low T Matt, when you're gone, gets a little power hungry. He starts dictating things. He pushes me around. He bullies me. He tries to lock me in the lockers. It's not acceptable. So I'm glad you're back, Hamilton.
Yeah, that's totally unacceptable. I'm sorry that happened, and I'm glad, it's good to see him there's a little stubble back there. It's not as jarring as it was the last time I saw him. So that is a relief for sure.
Buddy, you have no idea how excited I am that this is coming back here. Yeah.
And I gotta say, I am sorry I missed. I really wanted to do last week's show. I was excited to join you guys from the state of Missouri. That would have been a lot of fun. But the St. Louis airport, shout out to them for losing power and completely being completely non-operational for
Listen, they had to divert all the power to the St. Louis Bread Company. Okay, sorry, Bread Co. That it needed all the power. They needed to get some raviolis toasted. And they had things to do, okay?
Hey, they don't call that's a St. Louis style airport, if you ask me, right there. That's all I'm gonna say about them things. Everybody,
no, speak on your real thoughts of St. Louis, please.
Well, I did. Slicing a bagel weird doesn't make it St. Louis style. It just makes it stupid. That's all. Moving on, though. Before I get in too much trouble with St. Louis, I want to apologize to St. Louis. I guess for making fun of their bagel.
No, he doesn't.
But no, Hamilton, I'm excited to get some of your takes on why you were in Missouri. We'll be asking you some of those questions here in a little bit. But wanted to kick things off here with something that keeps popping up the last couple of weeks. I don't know, it feels like maybe like early this week is really when it started to feel like draft season was upon us from a global perspective. Like we're always in the draft. We're always nerding out about the draft, but it kind of felt like the NFL calendar shifted a little bit. Like the last few days, you started to see a lot more mock drafts coming out. You're starting to see more pro days. You're starting to get some of those draft rumors out there. This is this time of year where you start hearing draft rumors and things coming out about guys and all kinds of stuff. But when you look at the mock drafts for the Kansas City Chiefs lately, there's been a very common theme that I don't know if I subscribe to. I'm not sure yet. We're going to talk through it a little bit. The Chiefs have been mocked so many offensive linemen over the last 2 weeks. And at a very surprising rate, not just tackle, guard. They see the Chiefs, I've seen Gray Zabel, the interior offensive lineman to North Dakota State. I've seen guards. I've seen Josh Simmons, the tackle, Kelvin Banks, the tackle. Just tackles, offensive line flying off the boards in Kansas City, according to all of these mocks. Matty Lane, how surprised are you by this right now? Are you surprised by this right now? Like, what are we thinking here?
Okay. Let's take this in two different approaches. Let's start with offensive tackle. Let's go tackle first. Why are the Chiefs continuously mock drafted offensive tackles over and over? Look at the roster. It's pretty clear why they are mocked offensive tackles over and over. I mean, I've been pretty clear about this, and I think, a lot of national media, if you listen to how people react, nobody thinks that Jalen Moore is like a slam dunk fix for the left tackle spot. The Chiefs didn't pay him like he is. They paid him more than a backup number, but also not like a guaranteed starter number for them. I mean, it's probable starter number, but not guaranteed starting money for a left tackle. He's never been a full-time starting left tackle. Like, it makes a lot of sense if you were doing a mock draft and you follow every single team or just the league as a whole to say, hey, the Chiefs still have a giant hole at offensive tackle, specifically left tackle. Let's put the best left tackle still on the board here. And then you start looking at the players it always is. It's not like people have them reaching for Ursary from Minnesota in round one. It's not like people have them taking, off the wall offensive tackles. It's guys that are in that top 50 range that play left tackle, whether it's Josh Connerly from Oregon, Josh Simmons falling from Ohio State. Like, it's good players that I think people don't feel comfortable having a left tackle that they rank that highly fall out of the first round. The Chiefs are a very obvious landing spot when you look at their issues they had last year and the fact that Jalen Moore is the only help they've provided. So, like, I get the offensive tackle thing. And, Hamilton, you kind of, you focus a little bit more on the league as a whole than we do. What is your vibe on why, the Chiefs would be mocked offensive tackles so many times?
Yeah, and I think that's it. I think the perception is just, oh, look what happened in the Super Bowl. They need a left tackle. And, Jalen Moore doesn't, isn't a name that really moves the needle for a lot of people. So I think it's just that. It's just that, that national perception is still very much they need to fix the tackle situation. The interesting thing, like, do the Chiefs perceive it that way? Do they think Jalen's enough to fix that spot? I do think if they're going to take one, I don't think they take one just to take one there. I think, we've talked about the issues with this tackle class over the past month or so since we've been, really gearing up towards the draft. And again, they're not picking, they're not getting the pick of the litter here. And even the pick of the litter, there are questions with all of those guys. So I think if it's a Josh Simmons falling, a guy who regardless of how you feel about his bench press reps today, I'm a big fan of his, even coming off the injury. And maybe that's why they're able to get him at a value. If it's somebody like that, really stands out and really makes sense, I could see it happening, but I don't think they take a tackle just to take a tackle. I think it has to be somebody that they fall in love with, because there are a lot of other needs on this team and there's going to be a lot of other talent on the board in that spot.
I think there's two lines of thinking for me. Like, I have a hard time looking at Jalen Moore's dead money in 2026 and thinking that this team is going to just create a competition here this year in 2025, unless they just wanted to guarantee themselves that they had something there, right? And maybe Jalen Moore can compete at left guard if the left tackle wins out. Who knows? Like, that's not a unreasonable transition, I would say, for Jalen Moore if they wanted to, him and Kingsley to battle it out, or they wanted just a baseline over at the left tackle position where they have the ability to just go out and draft one as they need, as they feel comfortable. That it's really hard for me. It is really hard for me to just think, though, that this team gave that much money to Jalen Moore and now they're just going to turn around and draft a tackle. Like, that's the thing that we keep going back to. But we've also seen this team make aggressive corrections over the course of the last 5 years. When something ails them, they go out and they fix it with the fire of 1,000 suns and go out of their way to try to address it. They did that with Orlando Brown. I mean, the last time the offensive line was their detriment, they went out and did it. And I just wonder what happened.
Wow. You just want to
became the Ken show. Yeah.
Threw everyone off.
What in the world
was that? I think, okay. That might be a Tucker D. Franklin special. He's got.
I don't think it was Tuck.
Tucker's. Okay. Thanks. I wonder if there's an aggressive correction here, if that's the case. Like, because it's not just that people are mocking it. Like, there seems to be some indicators that the Chiefs would take a tackle as well and are interested in taking a tackle, and that's what I think is finding interesting. I think Albert Beard made some comments that kind of lended itself to the Chiefs' interest in this left tackle class.
Kind of. I mean, to be clear, if you read Albert Breer's entire answer, it was just kind of like, hey, the Chiefs would sure love a tackle to fall to them, but that seems less likely. So like, it wasn't that it felt like, it didn't feel like it was some kind of like insider info. He was just answering a question. I wanted to real quickly talk about kind of the tackle thing. You were saying that you didn't think that paying Jalen Moore that much money would indicate that they would be willing to immediately go up and add competition. I mean, Jalen Moore's only hitting for less than 6% of the entire salary cap. Like, that's not the money looks pretty big, but like essentially the only guys below him are rookies. Like the only starting tackles below his percentage of cap he's hitting for are rookies, or like Cam Robinson, who also signed later than him, or Teron Armstead, who had his salary converted because he's like half retired unless they pay him more or something. I don't know. So like, he's kind of on the lowest end of starting money that you can pay an offensive tackle. So I don't know if they invested so much in him that they couldn't be like, oh, here it is. A more talented guy is available for us than we expected. He can clearly come in and insert this competition. And I wanted to touch on something Hamilton said too. I don't think the Chiefs are taking a tackle just to take a tackle. I think if the Chiefs take an offensive tackle, it's because somebody fell to them at a value that they really like, and it's somebody that they think can come in and compete with Jalen Moore right away. Not somebody that could come in and compete with Wanya Morris, not that level, but somebody that they think could come in and compete with Jalen Moore right away, not another developmental tackle. So this is, me maybe projecting a little bit here. Josh Connerly from Oregon, I don't know if he fits that bill. I don't know if he's necessarily developmental, but I don't know if on day one you expect him to come in and start. So like when I see the Connerly one, to me, that more of indicates like, hey, we want to put this name in the first round rather than I think that makes the most sense for the Chiefs, because he doesn't seem like the kind of name that would really move the Chiefs off of Jalen Moore, especially in the next year or two.
Yeah, and that's those are my thoughts exactly on Connerly. You see a lot of potential there, but I don't see it. Yeah, I don't see him as someone coming in and just nailing down that left tackle spot right away. I think Simmons would have a better chance, again, assuming he's fully healthy and all of that. But yeah, I see Connerly as the guy that maybe in a year or two we see it start to come to fruition, but it's a lot to put on his plate out of the gates.
And do they want that again? Do they want another guy that they have to develop over the next 2 years? Because, I mean, like Kingsley, Wanya Morris, skip a year, Lucas Niang, they've been taking those swings. And like, yeah, Connerly probably, if you're taking him in round one, even in a slightly weaker draft class, you would assume that like maybe there's a little bit higher upside there. But like, I don't know if he's entirely different than those guys in terms of like needing some time to develop. Like, do they just want to keep doing that? Or is it, let's just see if a more ready person like a Simmons falls down? And I mean, we're just using his name because he's the most common guy. Kelvin Banks has also been mocked towards the end of round one. And like, he would be another guy. If he's available, I could see that being a kindly different proposition than a Connerly or any other like developmental tackle.
So I think there's an angle that we probably haven't spent a lot of time talking about when it comes to the tackle position. I don't know if we talk. I mean, I know we've definitely talked about it a little bit, like behind the scenes, but I don't know if we've ever talked about it on air when it comes to the tackle situation. But this team has been scrambling since Eric Fisher's injury to kind of try to figure out either overpaying draft capital for Orlando Brown Jr. or what they've tried to do the last couple of years with Donovan Smith and Wanye and all these different guys. I do think, to your point, like it has to be someone like a Banks. It has to be someone like a Simmons that, would be value falling to them if they were going to do this. But what if it is simply just trying to break that cycle, right? And maybe they don't feel like they have to roll out Josh Simmons week one if he's not ready. They don't feel like they have to roll out Kelvin Banks week one if he's not ready, because they have, a baseline with Jalen Moore there at the left tackle spot. But it gives them a chance to just finally break this cycle that they continue to go through at the tackle position, whether or not he's ready week one, week 10 or not, or it's 2026. They've at least positioned themselves to have the most capable body at the left tackle position that they've had since losing Eric Fisher. Well, that might be a little disrespectful to Orlando Brown Jr., but I just wonder if that's, I could see a justification of, even if you're not getting immediate day one help at the tackle spot, you're at least giving competition over there at the left side, and you're giving yourself club control for the next 5 years of whatever tackle you're taking in round one. So like it may not. Maybe this is taking your medicine a little bit for round one immediate or for year one immediate help to potentially, not even guaranteed, just potentially, but setting yourself up well for somebody that could potentially be your guy in 2026.
Yeah. I mean, I think if the right person is sliding down the board, they definitely would do it. And like, I like that the Jalen Moore aspect is we have a baseline, even if it's somebody that we think could come in and compete day one, there is not a pressure to go out there. Josh Simmons wouldn't have to come in and win the job right away. Kelvin Banks wouldn't have to come in, and the expectation wouldn't be you have to play week one. It can be a slower rollout. It can be, hey, maybe you could be the left or right tackle next year, depending on what you want to do with Juwan Taylor. There's a little bit less pressure this year with anybody they draft. I just don't know if they're going to be going after a developmental guy. And I think Wyoder, we've gone long enough here. Wyoder did say this too. Have we eliminated Donovan Jackson from the left tackle discussion officially? I wouldn't, but from reading the tea leaves, keep tracking with everything, it seems like the Donovan Jackson being able to play tackle thing has died down a little bit. It seems like the majority of the NFL sees him more as a guard. So I think that expecting him to play tackle seems to be a little bit on the back burner.
Let me add one more thing on the Donovan Jackson thing too. Does Donovan Jackson fit as a surplus or a plus value at pick 31? Iffy, right? I don't know if the Chiefs are going to view Donovan Jackson as the plus value that a Banks or a Simmons falling would. It's like that's another piece. Like, no, I'm not out on Donovan Jackson as a tackle. I think he can play tackle. I definitely think he can play tackle. I just don't know if the Chiefs will view that as like plus value, and they're not reaching for at 31 in the scenarios we're debating with tackles. It's value falling to them. So I don't know if Donovan Jackson is going to be considered value falling to them necessarily, and that's the only thing. Anything else on tackles, Hamilton?
I feel like we pretty much covered it all there. I think I don't know how much more there is to say about the tackles. Although I will add just one thing. Just hearing more of the rumblings and things. There are a lot of. This is just a really bizarre tackle class, and as we talked about over the past, there's a lot of debate going on about a bunch of different guys, whether or not they are guards or tackles, not just amongst the draft experts, but I can tell you amongst NFL teams themselves too. There are going to be some guys that we are thinking of tackle that when that name gets called, you might hear guard next to their name. So there's a lot of that in this class. It's going to be really interesting to see how that all plays out and who has guys slotted at what positions. But I don't ever remember a tackle class being this divisive, as divisive as this one is. It's interesting.
Yeah, we talked about the tackles. Some of these guys are interior offensive linemen. We'll see what they wind up being drafted as. We'll talk a little bit about the interior offensive line right after this.
Shop Chiefs tickets and more with no fees. Plus, save big with code KCSN at ticketsforless.com, the official ticket provider of KC Sports Network.
Success in real estate takes more than vision. It takes the right financial partner. When someone takes something rundown and turns it into something great, that's called a comeback story, like Brain Group. They take distressed properties here in KC, completely rework them, and then turn them into valuable real estate. But that kind of work needs the right bank behind it. Enter Emprise Bank. They're not about cookie-cutter loans. They saw Brain Group's vision, backed them, and now they're making big moves in Kansas City real estate. Talk about your partner in possible. Emprise doesn't do one-size-fits-all financing. They invest in potential and back growth. Visit emprisebank.com/KC to learn more. Emprise Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Registration is officially open for Hope Faith 2025 Disc Golf Tournament on June 14th of 2025. Sign up your team of for $100. All proceeds benefiting Hope Faith programs and services. Included in your registration, you're getting lunch, refreshments, a disc, a morning of friendly competition, raffles, and prizes. Sign up now using the link in the description of this show. Hope Faith Homeless Assistance Camps is KCSN's Foundation's Feed It Forward partner. All right. So thank you all so much for hanging out with us. We appreciate you. And yeah, they're one of our partners out there with KCSN's foundation, and they're absolutely incredible. And we really appreciate them, and we really want to try to help them as much as we can. So please consider that link is in the description of the show. Talked about interior offensive line early on. We've seen Gray Zabel mocked to the Chiefs, an interior offensive lineman only. Like, I think, when we're talking about these arm length debates, that's a guard. Maddie, how would you feel if the Chiefs drafted a guard?
Absolutely terrible. Listen, this is the one I can't track. I don't get it. Like, I understand. I understand the dot connecting. Oh, Chiefs offensive line was bad. The left guard was an issue in the Super Bowl, as we saw Mike Caliendo get pushed around, and then the Chiefs traded away Joe Thuney, their left guard. I understand connecting the dots and saying, well, they need to now replace that position. I get it. I would push back that trading away, an all-pro level guard and then immediately chasing after drafting that position in round one, especially when it's one of a little bit lesser value like guard, is kind of crazy. But I digress. At some point in time, you do have to play the players on your roster. The Chiefs have drafted Kingsley. The Chiefs have drafted Wanya Morris. The Chiefs have drafted all these tackles. They also drafted Hunter Norzad, CJ Hansen. They drafted interior guys. They have so many young players on this team that if you can't get by with one of those players being your fifth best offensive lineman playing left guard, then you gotta, then go pay for somebody. Do something to figure that out. You have put way too much draft value into the offensive line as a whole to not only not have figured out left tackle at all during it, but to not even have people that you feel comfortable about at left guard. That would be terrible drafting. If we're already to the point where we need to go trade up, as I saw in one mock draft for an offensive guard at this point in time, to trade up to draft one, like that means you've given up on Wanya Morris being a starting left tackle or guard this season. You've given up on Kingsley being a starting guard or left tackle at least this year, if not in the future, because Jawan Taylor's still under contract multiple years. Jalen Moore was signed for multiple years. If you'd go up and get a rookie guard, he's multiple years. Like, I just don't follow the logic other than the very simplistic guard was bad. They traded Thuney. Let's replace him again.
Yeah, I could not agree more. It is I don't want to say it's a throw the remote situation, but it's close. It's up there. It's again, you always leave room for, like, if there's somebody you absolutely love or that they think is going to be an all-pro for a long time to come, something like that. Like, you always leave room for that situation, but just generally you're right. They've invested so much that there are so many options there. It's a spot you can get away with it being your fifth best offensive lineman. It doesn't make sense. There are so many other, areas that need to be addressed. There's going to be a lot of other value on the board in that spot. I really don't see it happening. I would be absolutely stunned if we see that happen.
I don't care how much you like Tyler Booker, the Alabama guard, if he's falling. Like, the tape's good. I know the testing's been bad. Like, I don't know if I care. Trading Joe Thuney for a fourth round pick and then turning around and drafting a guard in the first round would be just, I don't understand the logic anyone's using. And maybe people are looking at like a depth chart on like our lads or something, and it's showing Kingsley Suamataia as a tackle option, right? And maybe people don't know, maybe some people don't know that, Kingsley's played left guard. There's an expectation that Kingsley Suamataia will be kicking inside and have an opportunity to be the left guard. And so people looking on the outside and looking and maybe not paying close enough attention, going, oh, well, there's a guard hole right there. Like, that's like the only scenario I can see that like makes a ton of sense, I guess. Yeah. And so, like, I don't know, man. I just, that one would be quite frustrating to me. And not that there wouldn't be good players that they would be acquiring. It's just like, it's the roster building, asset allocation part of it that would just be really confusing. But you've just seen so many connections recently. The offensive line, you've seen it, and like I get the tackle one to a degree, and like I think there's very easily a logic that could build if the Chiefs like where Josh Simmons is physically, and they think he can be a long-term answer. Like, I understand it. Same with Dalvin Banks. Interior offensive line, though, like I have a hard time. Like, if it's Gray Zabel with the 31st pick in less than a month, I don't know how that live stream's gonna go, Maddie.
I mean, like there's not a lot of picks in round one that would upset me, but a guard is one of them. I mean, they've put too much value into the offensive line, and this isn't the proper way to think about it all the time. I think there has definitely become a better value to having a good center, a good guard. But part of the thing about guard is sometimes you have tackles that fail. And a lot of times when tackles fail, like you can push them inside and get by with it. The Chiefs have done that with a lot of guys over Andy Reid's tenure. A lot of NFL teams have. And this doesn't mean that they're going to be great. This doesn't mean that Kingsley's going to be an awesome guard. This doesn't mean that Mike Caliendo, not a tackle, but doesn't mean he didn't or is going to develop and be good. It doesn't mean that Norzad or somebody else can take the job. I want to be clear. There's no guarantee. But you can go into this season and be like, hey, I wonder if one of these like 6 offensive linemen that we've taken over the past 2 years can play guard at a capable enough level before you panic draft a guard in round 1. So it's just, yeah, I would not get on board with it. I have seen the question here in the chat too, and you mentioned him, Tyler Booker, and somebody asked earlier before that. I'm sorry, I don't know who it was. Tyler Booker. Oh, here it is. From Patrick too. Would Tyler Booker be a fit? I don't know, guys. Tyler Booker's a little limited in his mobility. Like, he just can't move very well. And the Chiefs, while they do love big offensive linemen, Andy likes his big guards, centers, whatever, they're big guys, they got to move a little bit. And Tyler Booker's, like, lateral agility is tough. And, like, we've seen some of the issues, I think, with Trey Smith moving laterally when he gets isolated one-on-one, especially with the way Juwan Taylor plays with his spacing. I don't know if you could have that on both sides, like 2 kind of laterally limited offensive guards. So I don't know if Booker's a great fit with the rest of the guys they got going on there. How long do you think he'll go, Hammy? It was muted for the audio in the future.
I'm sorry, I muted my mic.
He's so disappointed in himself.
I had a nice little clean transition going because I was gonna say, like we're here talking about the interior offensive line, and the most expensive interior offensive lineman for the Kansas City Chiefs just happens to be Trey Smith, who Hamilton was on your fine program up in Adams this week. Tell us how that interview with Trey Smith went.
Yeah, so it was interesting. I mean, the big thing we were waiting for was an answer on kind of how those negotiations are going, if they're going. And he didn't give too much there, so you got to read between the lines a little bit. He did say that he wants to be a Chief for a long time, so that was something I think you love hearing if you're a Chiefs fan. But reading between the lines, it didn't sound like it's particularly close, if I had to guess. Because there was no mention of, oh yeah, we're having talks or trying to get something. It was just, I'd love to be a Chief for a long time. And we did bring up too, like if he plays on the tag, he'll be the highest paid guard and all that. And that seemed, he didn't seem to have an issue with that if that's how things end up working out and then he hits the market again next year. So again, I think he wants to get something done. I don't know how close that is. Again, he could just be playing things super, super close to the vest, but I feel like usually guys, like when they're in that situation, yeah, we're working on something, hopefully we get something done soon. There was none of that. It was just very much, I'd like to be a Chief for a long time. So it sounds like this might go on for a little bit and push towards that deadline.
This is confusing-ish to me because I don't think there was ever a question if Trey Smith was about to come in and reset the guard market, right? Like going into the offseason, you knew that you were probably going to be paying him as the highest paid offensive guard in the NFL. So when you decide to offer that franchise tag, you already knew that you were going to have to make him the highest paid offensive guard in the NFL. Sure, you can quibble over exactly by how much. You can talk about the guarantees. I understand how there can still be some stuff to iron out. But I understand you're not saying it's for sure not close, but if it is not close, if this is something that goes all the way through this season and he is not re-signed, like they do not land an extension with him before the next free agency period starts, like before he's going to be a free agent again next year, that is insane to go through a year with a guy on a franchise tag when nothing about his market value would have changed from when you decide to put the franchise tag on him. You actively traded away a guard before you had to place the franchise tag on him, and then did it knowing very well what the price would be. Because again, nothing has changed. I foresee them getting something done. I'm just saying, if we get to next year and he's a free agent again, something has gone terribly wrong, because I just don't know what could have changed.
Yeah, and I definitely think they get something done here. And again, I don't want to put words in his mouth. It was just my read. Having done a lot of these over the years, that's just kind of my read. Usually when it's close, the guys kind of give you a little hint that it's close. It could just be his team was adamant about, hey, don't say anything. Don't, that could very well be the case. But just generally when it's close, when it's being worked upon, when we're about to get, like, they give you a little something there, and he was just very, didn't really give too much into that. So that's just my read, not putting words in his mouth. But yeah, I do think ultimately they end up getting something done here down the line. I just hope, it would be beneficial if it happens before this deadline and doesn't drag on into next offseason.
Hamilton, do you know, and Maddie Lane, you can answer this question too. Do you know who has the highest APY for the guard position currently in the National Football League?
If we're including franchise tags?
It's Landon Dickerson at $21 million. Outside of Trey Smith.
Outside of Trey.
We got a $2.5 million gap here. The gap really didn't change all that much. I think there was some expectations that some other guys would get more than they got. Will Freeze only getting $17.5 million. Some people thought he was going to get even, higher than that. So, right now we're sitting here and there's a $2.5 million gap between the highest APY in the guard market and what Trey Smith just got tagged for. Trey Smith is 14th in guaranteed money in the guard market on the franchise tag right now. I don't know. I keep going, like, when they tagged him, I was like, it felt like maybe they were close. Maybe they were going to get something done pretty quick here. Maybe they were going to, they're just trying to buy themselves a little bit of time, keep the Chicago Bears from running this thing up and adding a bunch of money and adding a bunch of, figures to this thing. And they were just trying to buy themselves an extra week. But I mean, it's, we're almost into April. Nothing seems to have really materialized. We haven't even had a ton of news, about the Trey Smith negotiations, which is why I think we were all, hoping and what little we got, with him keeping things close to the vest on up and Adams. Like, I believe he wants to be a Chief long-term 100%. I buy that. Yeah. I think that's real. But man, it feels like they got a lot of work to do. Like a lot of work. And I don't know if as the deadline went, came and went, and the Chiefs kind of, put themselves in this position, if Trey's team just, didn't look at how opportunistic it was for them to, really, really change this market. $48 million is the most guaranteed money in a guard contract. We're talking, I'm sure Chris Lindstrom got $48 million. I'm sure we're going to see, especially now that Trey's getting half of that simply playing on the tag for 1 year.
Yep. Yeah.
That's a really tough spot to be negotiating right now.
Yeah. And I do think that plays into it too, that the fact that he has been hit with the tag, because from his perspective, I know, guys want the security. They want as much guaranteed money and as much upfront as they can get. But with that fully guaranteed tag, it does, for certain positions, and I think this is one of them, it gives you an interesting chance to double dip. If you don't get exactly what you want, you get to double dip. You get all of that money. You make more than any other guard in the National Football League this year. And, unless something catastrophic happens, you get to go reset the market next offseason. So there is some leverage there from Trey's standpoint, I think, in that regard.
Yeah, I don't think understandably players always want the security, but like from Trey Smith's perspective at this point in time, and I'm surprised more players aren't willing to play on the tag. I understand how it can backfire, but we've seen it. We've seen it work out for enough guys now over time that you're going to sit here if you're Trey Smith and make this much money. If there is a battle over guaranteed money long term, if there is a battle about how much you're going to get paid, I mean, listen, he's 25 years old. He was a day 3 draft pick. It wasn't like he got a first round contract either coming into the NFL. Like he's probably set up for like one guaranteed big payday. And obviously, if he can maintain his health and keep playing this well into his 30s or, to his late 20s, sure, there could be a second one, but he's probably looking at like, just from this perspective, there's one guaranteed big payday coming. You got to maximize it. And it's just, the Chiefs just should have already known that, though. So, that's why I don't know if it's dragging feet. The Chiefs like to, when they do this kind of stuff, they make a lot of these extensions like later on, like early summer, stuff like that. So I'm not going to panic or be worried about it until we get a little bit farther along. It just seems like a move that'll come later. I do think it is interesting, though, that, it just his vibe, and whether it was coached to say it, told to say it, or just really what the vibe is right now, is there hasn't been a lot of progress.
Yeah, and it is interesting with you mentioning. I'm thinking about like most of the guys that have played on the tag, it worked out better for them in the long run. Whether it's Kirk Cousins or Saquon or T Higgins,
even T Higgins now, it's like 1 year prove it deals are a little bit more up and down. Like, some guys it works, some guys it doesn't, but like guys playing on the franchise tag, like I guarantee it's happened. Somebody can hit me up in the chat or after the show and say, oh, here's what didn't work. But like, who's the last player that was like actively really good that got tagged and then didn't get a big payday after, their tagged year? Right. So
it's been a minute. And I just like, for some context and why, like, man, this is an interesting game that the Chiefs are playing here. Quinn Miners, less than a calendar year ago, signed a 4-year extension with the Denver Broncos, 4-year, $80 million. The real guarantees on that deal was $24 million. That's basically what
is making this year.
Is making this year.
Yeah.
I mean, less than a calendar year removed, and that's the real guaranteed money that Quinn Miners has. Like, that's stunning. And like, that's just such a difficult place for the Chiefs to be negotiating. And like, they did it to themselves, right? Like, they definitely did. And like, they have a plan, and I'm not doubting that they have a plan. But I mean, I think Trey Smith could play this year for $23 million, still probably get a record-breaking APY and a record-breaking guaranteed in 2026.
Yeah.
And
Lindstrom got a lot of guarantees. The guard market's a little interesting. If I look at the big guarantees are actually on older deals. Nelson and Lindstrom from 2022 and 2023. You look at the deals signed in 2024, and then like anybody that was signed this year, the guarantees are a little bit lower again. I mean, just
Robert, 44.
Yeah,
Robert, not last year.
44. Yeah, that was last year. But like, it's just weird. It felt like there was like they thought there was going to be a huge spike, and the average salary's gone up, but it's just the guarantees for guards aren't matching the guarantees for a lot of other positions right now. And again, this is maybe what the issue is. And especially for somebody like Trey Smith, and you don't ever want to like put this in there, but there is an underlying medical concern that everybody talked to death coming through the draft. Somehow, some way, maybe that is, I don't want to say the Chiefs aren't wanting to pay him, but maybe they are a little afraid of the guarantees going all the way into it, or being a big amount of guarantees. If that's possibly an issue, I don't know. But I mean, I don't know. Get it done is essentially what I'm trying to say at this point in time.
And Quinn signing that deal might have messed it up a little bit too, because he's in a first team All Pro season. Could have probably done a little bit better, and that does factor into all of this too when you're looking at the market and these negotiations. So that could be something that's holding this thing up as well. As okay, how do we account for that deal in this deal? And as you said, Ken, with him not really getting those guarantees, it throws things off as far as the market value a little bit, I think. But yeah, again, I do think they get it done. I'm hopeful still, and I do believe Trey when he says he wants to be here. So I think we see it happen, at some point this summer, hopefully.
Yeah, that just kicks the can down the road on the Trent McDuffie extension now too. Most likely is what happens, and that's that's just. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of thought they might be able to get something done sooner rather than later, but if you set the over under on April 1, I'd say the over at this point. So, the market really didn't reset either all that much. I mean, I guess Landon Dickerson barely exceeded the deal done, and that was in 2024. So that 2025 hasn't really seen the guard market blow up as much as it blew up in 2024. I don't know. Still waiting on Trey, but we'll see what happens. We're going to take a break. We'll be back right after this.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network. Entertain, educate, inform. KC Sports Network.
It's time for the segment that I think me and Maddie Lane look forward to the absolute most.
Hold on. I got to interrupt you. I'm sorry. This is a big deal here. I'm sorry. I really am sorry. There's breaking news here. Okay, we have breaking news. I would like to wish Kent Swanson a very happy birthday in front of all of you. I wanted this in here, so we're just going to take a second and listen. Happy 42nd birthday, Kent. We appreciate you.
Happy birthday. Yeah. Was that talk on the keys there?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Tuck is skilled. Sometimes he's too busy playing those keys to be on the keyboard, which is why sometimes I catch him on these breaks. But no, thank you, Matthew. I'll tell Kent Swanson you wished him a happy birthday when I talk to him later, because I think Matt Swanson's only like 6 months old. So I don't think it's his birthday yet, but I'm sure Kent really appreciates that very, very much.
And I'm sorry to interrupt Matt or Kent Swanson. I just big news.
That's okay.
Big thanks.
It's okay. Thank you. Hamilton, I'd love to get to your burning questions, because this is a segment I look forward to very much now, because we don't know what you're about to ask, and I'm always fascinated to see where you go with this, and we missed it last week. So let's party. Floor is yours, my friend.
All right. If you could pick one player on the Chiefs, returning player on the Chiefs, to make a massive leap this year, they're going to take a huge step forward, who are you picking?
That I want to, or is going to?
That you want to.
I know. I think I know. Well,
we could do go who you think is going to next. I like that too.
Pause. Hamilton, you should say who is going to, because if you say want to, he's gonna say like, I want Ethan Driscoll to be an all-pro left tackle, because I'm not very specific with him.
No, I'm not. Who do I want to make a big jump is Nick Bolton, because it would be fun to have a really good linebacker at some point in time, especially if you're gonna pay him like one. Now, who is going to is Xavier Worthy. I think Worthy showed down the back half of the year that he was kind of figuring it out. The Chiefs were figuring out how to use him a little bit better. And hey, it looks like Rashee Rice has got a shot to be healthy. I'm not saying, from these little workout videos that he's A-okay, he's ready to go and he's hitting the ground running, and there's obviously a potential suspension issue, but a healthy Hollywood Brown, a returning at some point in time Rashee Rice, plus Xavier Worthy, I think opens him up to do even more, takes even more attention off of him, because he was getting a lot of it down the stretch. I just think that he's in for a lot bigger year this season.
Who is going to is Jaden Hicks. I think Jaden Hicks is a guy that has a lot of runway and opportunity to really take off in the safety room with the absence of Justin Reed, the guy that kind of plays with a similar skill set and has some crossover to what Justin Reed is able to do, with the versatility, both playing in the deep half, but also being able to play in the box, a little bit of man coverage, athleticism, flying and running the alley with conviction and confidence. Like that's what Jaden Hicks is. And like, I think there's, you saw flashes of Hicks, and you saw, Hicks playing in as a rookie during the playoffs, even last season too. I think there's opportunity, even if the Chiefs were to add another body to the safety room. I think there's a chance Brian Cook is off the field more than Jaden Hicks is. I think there's a chance for Hicks to really take off this season. I think he's got more runway than about any position to really excel. And like, there was flashes of it last year. So give me Jaden Hicks.
I'm seeing a lot of Felix's in the comments too. I think that's one that I would love to see. I'd love to see him have a big breakout year. Yeah.
I like that one too. I mean, he's going to be what?
Deep
when does he turn 24?
He's
already 23. So he just turned 23. He's going to play his year 23. Like, there's some edge rushers that are older than him that are getting drafted this year. So if he takes off, like, would it surprise me all that much? No, he's still, he's going to be playing his year 23 season. So yeah, let's do that.
Okay. Do you expect it? Sorry. You said it wouldn't surprise you. Put a percentage on him having a breakout year.
Define breakout.
Okay.
Is it like 8 sacks? Like
Yeah, no, okay. Over 6.5 sacks and plays over 45% of the snaps.
I'll say, is there a 30% chance?
Okay.
30% chance.
So if he does it, it's kind of surprising.
Yeah. Okay. Hicks, I have more confidence. I think Hicks can have a good year. I really do.
I would agree.
all right, next one for you guys. I want to, I know the viewer, these viewers have been watching you for years. They've heard your stories, but I feel like you guys have also been, you guys are so deep in the analysis sometimes. I like to get to know you both a little bit more, especially when it comes to these Chiefs. So
Perfect.
what was the moment that your earliest Chiefs memory that just, turned you into a Chiefs sicko? Like that was what got you hooked, and it was history from there. What's the earliest memory that just turned you into a complete Chiefs sicko?
Ooh, this is a little tricky for me. So I grew up in a household that was very much all Chiefs fans. And when I really started to get into football and being, I don't know, somebody that likes to instigate and maybe cause a little bit of ruckus, I maybe decide to root for other teams, not necessarily because I like them, but just because I didn't want to conform with everybody else. And so growing up, I actually just kind of liked players. So like my earliest Chiefs memories are actually going to a 49ers game wearing a Jerry Rice jersey. And then going to a Vikings game. I believe it was Randy Moss's second year in the league. The Vikings were in town and wearing a Randy Moss jersey. So like those are my earliest Chiefs related memories, are actually going to games wearing an opposing player's jersey. But that said, when I really became a sicko and like, I was like, okay, I'm really getting football now. I love the Chiefs. The Priest Holmes, like them adding Priest Holmes and just watching that team, that went from like, okay, I'm kind of becoming a Chiefs fan to, oh, wow, this is like everything. And all that matters in the world was just watching that offensive line and Priest Holmes, work in unison.
I was thinking about using all of my Christmas money to buy tickets to that to the no punt game when I was like 14, by the way. Okay, so I went and looked at the date. I think it might have been December 12th, 1994. Which I was 5. Maddie Lane will tell you he wasn't born yet. Yeah.
I was 3, and wearing I was wearing a Jerry Rice jersey to a game around then.
Contrarian at birth. I was watching.
That is the least surprising story, by the way, of all time. That is
I've
the
told
most
it before.
on-brand thing.
I've said it numerous times before that like that was my first Chiefs games, and like I'm sure there could have been other ones where I actually was a Chiefs fan because like we went to quite a few. It's just I remember those because Jerry Rice was like my dad's favorite non-Chiefs player growing up, as every non-49ers fan's favorite player was Jerry Rice. I was like, oh, he's really cool. And then Randy Moss was just, the coolest person of all time to a young child at that moment in time. So was definitely a bigger fan of those two than the Chiefs for a while.
Not as young as he pretended to be. Anyways, I watched a Monday Night Football game. I think it was Dolphins Chiefs. I'm pretty sure it was December 12th, 1994. It was this game. Jesus. I was watching it with my dad. I loved it. I was all the way into it. And this is for you kids. Printer paper used to have printer paper used to have these perforations on the sides that you could like peel off. You remember it was like really satisfying to like clean.
No, I don't.
Peel those off. I know you don't, Maddie.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
But I drew like a 3-page like of printer paper of an entire football team while I was watching that game because I thought it was like the coolest thing ever, and that like I got fascinated with like football players and football helmets. I used to love football helmets. I used to make Connects football helmets, like with face masks. I'd like make different face masks and stuff. Like I got into all of that. So I think it was a Chiefs Dolphins game in December of 1994 was the game that while I was watching that really got me into it. And then, a lot of there was some pain after that for a few years. But that would probably be like my first real vivid memory of like following the Chiefs.
I think it's the same year of my first memory, honestly. I think that would be my assumption of when Jared was looking at a schedule of when the 49ers and Jerry Rice would have went to Kansas City to play. And I would have been there with the Jerry Rice jersey on.
And I think that was a Montana year. So like the Chiefs were, it was a Montana year too. So like, I
remember nothing about them.
I think the Chiefs were just a hot topic that season, So like, I think that probably had a little bit to do with it too.
Yeah, so my first memory of the Chiefs was around that time. Because growing up New York area, Giants fan. There was I just looked up the game. It was a week 2 game. Steve Bono, Chiefs beat the Giants. Marcus Allen, Chiefs beat the Giants in overtime. I remember being very pissed off after that one.
I remember being frustrated. That's how I knew I was becoming like a Chiefs diehard. Was the Steve Bono, Rich Gannon kerfuffle and the mishandling of that. Like that pissed me off even as a child. And I was like, maybe this means something.
Yeah. I guess the moment I knew I was a sicko, it was the Giants. It was 94 was the first season I can fully remember. And I just remember they were playing the Saints and they ended up missing the playoffs by a game that year too. The Packers ended up making it instead. And Chris Callaway catches a ball to get them into field goal range. And he spikes the ball and they call him for a personal foul. Knocks him out of field goal range. They lose to the Saints. I was just I remember I was like under the dining room table, just like losing my mind.
Have you have you guys watched sidebar? Have you guys watched like a mid-90s football game recently? Like
yes.
That's a different sport than what
it is different. It is different.
They can't.
I remember going back and watching Andy Reid's. This was last year, like watching his first year in Philly, and that offense, and every now and then I'll go back and do some Jerry Rice, like even just highlights of Jerry Rice or like the good players, like guys that I've always liked. It's like it's different. One thing that does live like completely in my mind that we'll never forget. It would have been like 9-10 years old. The Antonio Freeman catch on Monday night against the Vikings. I mean, I remember I was up in my room by myself playing Duck Hunt on one side, watching Monday Night Football on the other side. And I remember him and I was like watching it and I was like, I'm pretty sure he caught it. Like when everybody's trying to figure out I was like, I don't think that ball ever hit the ground. I'm like yelling down the stairs to my dad and I'm supposed to be asleep saying like, hey, I'm pretty sure that's a catch. And that's like one play just thinking about this old football that like is never going to leave my brain. Yeah, no, that's another. I feel like we didn't have school the next day or something, so I was actually because I was never really allowed to stay out for Monday Night Football that late, and to see the whole game, and that's a vivid one for me too. There were some exceptions, if it was the Giants, I was allowed to stay out, but other than that, I had to go to bed. That's it for my burning questions this week. That was fun getting to learn a little bit about the Chiefs fandom from you guys. So enjoyed that.
I will say, if you are bored, go watch a random 90s Chiefs game and just watch.
Oh my
God.
Like
it's an interesting sport because it's like, like they're in base 3-4 on third down and they're just blitzing everyone. And the pass concept is like it's corner flat and that's it. Like that's all you got.
Tucker's first Chiefs memory is Trent Green's concussion.
Oh,
stop! You are not that. Golly,
God!
Was that 2007? He promises it is. How old were you? Were you 9? Was it 2007? That's Trent Green. Was it what year was that? What was Trent Green's? That is wild. I feel like I was in college.
07, that would have been like early 2000s.
Was it? I thought when was Trent Green's last? Yeah, it wasn't 2000.
Probably 03. 04, 03?
I thought it was 06 because his last year was 06, and I thought it was like the year before his last year. Was it not?
Oh my gosh, we're going down a rabbit hole now.
Trent Green's 2016 or 6 season was put in jeopardy by a severe concussion he suffered during the first game of the season.
Oh my God, 06?
06. It wasn't that off. Tucker's like shaking his head like his 02. I was closer. God. So Tucker.
So if we're going down memory lane, I was at Trent Green's his first game that he played. It was a season opener, Giants Washington. It was when he was with Washington. Gus Farrat got knocked out of the game, and he came in and was lighting it up
for the Rams.
For Washington.
Oh, for Washington. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
98 season opener.
19. Oh my. Well,
I was there for that. I was like, we knocked out Gus Farrat. We're good. We got this thing. And then Trent Green just starts. I think the Giants still won, but he was. Yeah, the Giants won 31-24. Trent Green
love
came in
it.
off the bench, threw for 208 and 2 touchdowns.
What a
No picks.
dog.
Yeah.
What an absolute dog. I could go. There's a lot. I got a lot of memories from Chiefs lore and Chiefs. We don't need to do this. We're gonna be here all day. I do what. Don't get me started.
Oh,
on
this
that
is a better
spreadsheet.
topic than this is a better topic than talking about pro days.
Well, except for Matt Hamilton was at
I
the Missouri
know.
Pro Day, and I wanted to
And
get
Tucker.
takeaways from him. Yeah, well, Tucker's not on the air right now. He's too
Could
busy
be
practicing.
anytime he wants.
Sure.
He's on the keys right now, just shredding it up. But Hamilton, yeah, you weren't here last week because you were heading over to the Missouri Pro Day. I know you got to hang out there. You got to hang out with Tucker. I was very jealous because I was hoping to get out there, and then things transpired. Anything you learned? Any takeaways that you have from Missouri's Pro Day?
Yeah, so there were a few things. It was, would have loved to get to see Membu and Luther Burden get to work out. Obviously that did not happen. I do get the sense from, what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing. Maybe Membu doesn't go, there are teams that have their mocks that have the Patriots taking him at 4. I don't know if he goes that high, but it does seem like top 15 is going to happen. It doesn't seem like he is going to be an option for the Chiefs. I know a lot of mocks have had that since the combine, but that does seem to be realistic. There are some teams that might see him. He's another one that teams might see him potentially at guard as the best fit for him, from what I've heard, which is interesting. But yeah, it does seem like he won't be an option for the Chiefs. Luther Burden, I know this is a very divisive issue amongst Chiefs fans. It does seem like there's a possibility that they will have a shot at him there. But I thought it was interesting because the Patriots, Matt Groh is there, who is, basically their highest ranking executive next to Elliott Wolf. And a lot of people were, kind of reading the tea leaves. Oh, he's there for Membu, because that's a rumored landing spot for Membu. I'm beginning to wonder if he was there for Luther. If, obviously you're there doing your due diligence on everybody, but I'm starting to get the sense that they're super interested in Luther Burden. And again, it's putting pieces together. When we had Coach Drink on the show on Thursday, the first team he mentioned that was going to be in attendance was the Patriots. I heard him say on another show that he thinks Luther would be a good fit in the Patriots offense. And just seeing the presence that they had there, I'm just putting some pieces together. And again, with them picking at the top of the second round and in striking distance to maybe even trade up into the first, for the Missouri fans, I just felt that was interesting. And now with the Diggs addition, you had Stephon, because you look at what they did in free agency prior to Stephon Diggs, the Patriots didn't really do a lot to address that offense and help out Drake May there. They made a lot of great additions on the defensive side of the ball. But with all that money they had to spend, you're hoping like, hey, what are we doing for Drake May? And I'm wondering if, we see them potentially go that route. It seems like, again, just putting pieces together from here and there, it does seem like he's somebody they're super interested in.
The burden to New England would be, they need wide receivers. Let's go start there. They need help for Drake May. They need wide receivers. I know they signed Stephon Diggs, but that's kind of a different player. I think would be interesting to see Luther Burden's fit with that particular team because they feel like what they do have is potential guys to play in the slot. And I know that I'm not trying to say that Luther Burden's a slot only, but like that he's going to spend a lot of time playing out of the slot at the NFL level. That's where he's going to be at his best. If you draft him, you better be willing to play him out of the slot a ton and just get the ball in his hands. And that's the one receiver they have that's kind of proven, and Pop Douglas is kind of best in that role. I think that you probably want, if you believe in anything about him, Kayshon Boutte out of that role a little bit as well. And I'm not saying he's good or anything. So I don't know. It's not a bad fit. I would have zero issues with the Patriots doing it. I think it would be very notable, though, if the Patriots were heavily interested in him because, they don't pick at the later part of the first round. They are a second-round team. It's early, but they are a second-round team. So if they are feeling like he might be available for them there or if they want to trade up, that is something just worth monitoring, I think, going forward.
No, I agree. And if you look at their roster, and it's Keishon Boutte, it's Stephon Diggs, and you talk about Demario Douglas. Demario Douglas has no real connections to any of these guys here with Mike Vrabel and his staff. I don't think Josh McDaniels was there when Demario Douglas was drafted by the Patriots in 2023. So you're just looking at a lot of guys that have been unreliable and haven't been consistent. I think I don't think Demario Douglas is a guy that gets in the way of you improving and adding a playmaker, right? And I think there is a chance that Luther Burden is a playmaker that's available to them in the early second. So that wouldn't surprise me at all. I think, I don't think Demario Douglas is someone that you hold off on making improvements on your roster, especially with something as important as what you're trying to get with Drake May. If you're wanting to talk about easy completions and a guy that you can manufacture touches, I'd rather manufacture touches for a guy like Burden, who has a little bit more of a diverse skill set, the size, that you prefer. So it'd make a ton of sense. I do think, you're talking like it's round 2. That's probably round 2. That means it's probably surpassing the Chiefs. It kind of does feel like I don't feel like the Chiefs would be in on Burden at this point this year. I've talked about like maybe just because of the talent, you try to find a way to make it fit, make it work, and I think they could, but I feel like there's just other pressing needs for this team this year that maybe they're gonna pass on Burden, and it does feel like Burden's range seems to be more early 2 than it has been in recent memory, just based on some of the other mocks that are out there right now.
Yeah, and I do want to say too, just from that pro day experience, just overall, if again, I know we have, I'm sure some of the new fans watching this, it's hard not to feel great about the direction that program is headed after seeing everything that they're doing there. The facilities are out of this world, surpass most NFL facilities by a lot.
Well, definitely the Chiefs. Hamilton said it first. The best facilities in the state of Missouri belong to the Missouri Tigers and not the Kansas City Chiefs.
Oh, there's no question. And that new indoor is out of this world. There are exciting things happening there. And you can see where that move to the SEC is really paying off, because that was my first time back in, since I graduated in 2009 when I was working as a student assistant coach with the quarterbacks, and being in those old Big 12 facilities and seeing what it looks like now. It is an entirely different world, and just the support staff that they have for these guys and for recruiting and everything else. Like it is, it's going to be exciting to see what they're able to do here in the next couple of years, and hopefully capitalize on this momentum that they have going right now.
Well, Hamilton, I'm glad you got an opportunity to go out there and hang out and check things out. And I'm glad you got to hang out with Tucker D. Franklin, because that's obviously like the highlight of anybody's year.
Of course.
So,
getting to go to a quick trip with Tucker D. Franklin. If you don't get that experience in your life, you are missing out, bud.
How many hot dogs?
Hold on. What is the Tucker game plan? What is Tucker's game plan at a quick trip?
Hot dogs. I've seen him plural.
He didn't go for the hot dogs. He was looking for.
Does he go straight for it? Does he meander around? Like, what's the play?
So he went straight for the for the heart of the meal first. He ended up getting a sandwich, but he does browse. We were looking at some of the other snack options he was telling me on. Had an interesting choice: the cranberries, the bagged cranberries. That was one of Tucker's go-tos. And they were, I trusted Tuck, and they were delicious. 50, as he mentioned in our private chat, 50 calories.
The D stands for cranberries. That's going to do it for this episode of the KC Laboratory. Thank you.
They should rebrand them Cranberry Bangers.
We love you. We appreciate this. Get out of here.
Not if Kansas had those same kind of facilities. Instead, they played in NFL Stadium.